Hello, everyone, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where we break down the commodity space for both new and experienced investors. My name is Jesse Day, and before we get started, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investing advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Myriad Uranium, a uranium exploration company with operations in Niger, Africa. Mr. Thomas Lamb, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here, Jesse.
Great to have you. And I want to get started, like I do with all new guests, on the origin story. So how did you first become involved with investing in financial markets, and how did that lead you to the uranium space and to becoming the CEO of Myriad Uranium?
Well, I was a young corporate lawyer, just working hard at a big law firm. And I always had this entrepreneurial sort of feeling deep within me. I knew that I was going to do something. I didn't know what. I quit M&A, securities law, as a young lawyer, and embarked on this exciting journey. I left law, wasn't sure what I was going to do, bumped into some friends on the street, engineers, other lawyers, and we partnered. We were young, not very experienced. This was 17 years ago, 20 years ago in Vancouver. And we started some companies, and we just figured it out. Luck was a factor. We worked hard. We tried things. We made mistakes, but there was luck too. We had a gold company that turned into a producer, and a very nice IPO. I got involved in some cool explorers. I ended up in Russia on the board of one of Russia's very largest companies. That was a long time ago, before things went a little bit sideways there. Very interesting time. With some colleagues, we started a project generator. This is about 11 years ago in East Africa. Among the companies we created was one called M2 Cobalt, and that had a nice IPO, and we sold it to kind of an offshoot of Glencore called Jervois Global. And I was an executive for Jervois for a time. But I always knew I had to get back to being an entrepreneur, so here I am. That's a bit of my journey. Lived in London Business School, other things. So series of fortunate events, that's that journey. Uranium, I've always been interested in making the world a better place. This is another conversation for another time. So I do that in parallel any way I can. Did not anticipate that uranium would be it, or one of the key ways I could do that. Who knew, right? So a little while ago, a friend and close colleague, business partner, his name is Pete Smith, really smart guy. He put together this deal, Myriad Uranium. He helped put together the option to acquire all these licenses, which we'll discuss in due course. And so he was CEO up until a few months ago, and I stepped in, and I'll tell you more about that. But suddenly, uranium, too interesting, too important to ignore for me. That's how I got into it. Pete suggested I become CEO. I speak French, lots of Africa experience, and as we're going to discuss, big impact, that appeals to me. Climate change, maybe democracy, interesting angle there. And we've got humanity's future. So all these things together, plus it's a very interesting business that we have at Myriad. The assets we have, really interesting. Jurisdiction, Niger, very cool. Too interesting, too important to ignore. So here I am.
Yeah, I love that. I do want to dive into Myriad and also Niger as a jurisdiction in a bit here. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the macro for uranium. So I want to ask you, from your perspective, what are the main drivers and catalysts that you see working in uranium's favor here in 2023?
So, this is all of a sudden, this is the most exciting place to be, in my view. Okay, so we already know that nuclear, I think, powers about 10% of the world's, creates about 10% of the world's electricity, right? So, but things are, okay, so there's that. But there is so much happening in this space now. Things have been fairly stable for a while, but all of a sudden, so we have about 440, these are the stats, about 440 reactors operating right now. 60, so they consume a lot of uranium as it is, and there's a bit of equilibrium, or has been in the market, right? But 60 new reactors under construction, 100 have been ordered, 300 more proposed, and there are lots of restarts happening. So we have old reactors that are being, freshened up, turned back on. We also know countries, and some are being a little quieter than others about it, but they are putting off closures. They're all this together. If you do the, people add up the uranium demand, and it's just kind of going like this, isn't it? So, so these are just sort of the basic 100,000 foot stats. You go a little bit deeper into this, and which we can. You've got like stockpiles of hex, for example, diminishing. This is UF6, right? So for various reasons, this is going to require more buying in the spot market, right? This is sort of it's key for what's going to happen to the uranium price in the near future, right? We've got China building a big strategic uranium reserve. You've got Kazatomprom's, I forget the acronym. Is it ANU?
That's right. In a study. Yeah, ANU Energy.
So I mean, that is going to be inhaling a lot of uranium. We've got, of course, Sprott. We've got the U.S., which I think you mentioned right at the beginning. All sorts of interesting things are happening. This is going to be a lot of demand created. So these are important points with regard to demand. Now, supply, the other side of the equation, very interesting, right? So to get to the next level of production, we're going to need $65 or $70 uranium. We're currently around 50. That's point number one. So we need to get up there. Long-term contracts are being done at a higher price than spot. In some cases, significantly higher is sort of what you're hearing. That is also going to pull up the spot price of uranium that we see, that's visible to us. Other supply things, if you want me to list just a few more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, my understanding is that Kazatomprom, their headline production is going to be quite a bit lower this year, 4 to 5 million pounds less, right? So now they have contracts they have to make up. There are utilities they're going to exercise options to buy more uranium. This is going to really pull things up. People are going to have to buy in the spot. That is interesting. I believe Yellowcake has an option to buy another. This is 1.5 million pounds is what I saw from Kazatomprom. So you're gonna have, just to take the Kazatomprom example, they're gonna have to be buying in the spot, right, to satisfy their obligations, keep up their own reserves. Very interesting. Lots of other groups that are going to be buying physical uranium. Of course, we all know Sprott, et cetera. So one other point I want to make too is that the underfeeding that was also helping in the past, I believe that's over now. The underfeeding, which you could circle back and access that, and so that is these are all factors that are just make everything. They're going to conspire together to make this really exciting. That's what I've seen. So that's my comment on the forces at work here, right? You've got a few other bigger things too. Just conceptually, you've got all these reactors under construction. There are long lifespan assets. They're going to be cranking out. They each require, depending on the design, call it 500,000 pounds of uranium each on average, depending on the design, et cetera. You just add them all up, and they're 60 years, 80 years. They're going to be, requiring uranium. It's you add up all the numbers, good situation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you were touching on earlier, which is, you're interested in humanitarian causes and you see uranium as kind of a net positive for humanity, which is one of the reasons you're involved. Because obviously we're seeing an energy crisis in Europe that may spread further globally. We've been lucky. I'm in Europe at the moment. We've been quite lucky that we've had a very warm winter, which is nice. Natural gas supplies are currently doing quite well, but there is, of course, concern for next winter. There's a lot of policies being put in place in these various countries that are kind of hindering a successful energy transition, and that includes some countries still demonizing nuclear energy, such as Germany and Belgium, and a few other outliers. I think Austria is in there as well. So, looking forward, how do you see uranium and nuclear energy potentially solving the energy crisis up ahead?
Out of nowhere, to me, I mean, smart people who've been watching this have understood this probably for decades. And you may have seen this graph that if everybody had followed the French decades ago, climate change would have been solved. That would have been it. Pretty interesting. Well, that wasn't me. I was paying attention to other things. This has come out of nowhere, but I have been, as you can see, I'm now focused on this and looking at it. I mean, this does seem to be the solution, doesn't it? It's a solution to, okay, we've already, climate change, et cetera, but politically, really nice energy crisis solution. It is right here in front of us available. So you've got fact that a lot of countries are at the mercy of the few oil producers, that a lot of them are run by autocrats. We can just tell it like it is. You've got countries, some countries that produce a lot of oil, Canada, US, et cetera, are not like that, but a lot of the ones that produce a lot of oil, these are difficult countries that are run in ways that interfere with freedom, democracy, et cetera. We need to mitigate the negative, aspects and the influence that these countries have. I think, now I don't know for sure. I've been thinking as best I can about this, that nuclear is really going to be a solution, but it has a really good chance of subtracting power from autocrats, giving stability to Western countries that are open societies. You can have baseload power. You built these things, baseload power. You're not at the mercy of what do they call it, the gas cans next door. For example, Europe and Russia. I mean, this is just the great, the example, isn't it, right now? This is what you're talking about. So basically, you've got tons of oil and gas that has historically been coming from Russia. This is an arrangement that dates back to sort of mid to late Soviet times, especially between Soviet Union and Germany, export terminal out of St. Petersburg. And the Soviets and then the Russians have been very smart about just locking up that relationship and causing this reliance. And this is going to potentially solve that. You're going to have baseload power, clean, so you're going to get politics, a little bit of freedom, plus climate change, all together here as as countries adopt nuclear. And this is just in Europe and the West. Asia, also very interesting, South Central Asia and China, et cetera. Yeah, so I'm very excited about nuclear as a way to promote democracy, I suppose, and open societies. I think it has that potential.
Yeah, that's a very interesting angle that I hadn't heard before, but very relevant. I want to dive into jurisdiction now, and specifically the area that Myriad Uranium is located in Niger. Obviously, quite a well-known uranium mining district. Orano's been there for a while. You've got Global Atomic moving towards starting a mine there. GovEx is there as well. So, in your opinion, what makes Niger attractive from a uranium mining and exploration perspective?
So Niger is surprisingly good. It's in an unstable region, right? It's surrounded by Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, etc. But Niger has been explored by the French. It's a French colony or colonial country, I suppose, for decades and decades. French government company, Kojima, Arriva, now Orano is the different iterations, currently Orano. Been there for decades, explored the whole Timor-Soy Basin, which is one of the great uranium basins, on a regional scale, and have made massive discoveries. So what that has done is it has created the infrastructure in Niger to support large-scale uranium mining, exploration. It has created several generations of Nigerians who understand mining, are very highly skilled, understand its value. You've got government people there, service providers. This is drillers, geologists, geophysicists, everybody there. And you have infrastructure. This is built over decades. So this from a practical point of view, somebody like me coming into the country, everything is there to enable you to do your business, which is look for uranium or build mines and produce uranium. You also have geopolitically, you have Niger as a bit of an island in this region that has been unstable, and everybody wants it to be the stable place. So you have a huge U.S. military base, which is not far from the uranium-producing region. I don't know if that's intentional or not. You have the French, who, of course, 70% plus of their electricity is generated by nuclear. Niger is kind of their, it's not exclusive, but it's their spot that they get to kind of they get to have secure supply because they get to be Niger focused. It's their area, whereas they have joint ventures everywhere else, whether it's Athabasca, Kazakhstan, etc. Anything could happen over there. Kazatomprom decides that, and Kazakhstan needs to shift. They've got issues with, for example, China or internally. What's going to happen to Orano? Athabasca, we don't know how long everything's going to last there. They may not be producing uranium forever. Whereas in Niger, Orano has at least 50 years of reserves, probably a lot more. It's got its Imararan, 380 million pounds of uranium near surface. This is like Orano's mine of the future. It's right there. We've got other assets there that are producing. They've got a really high capacity mill, etc. So my point is that I'm coming to is France is not going to let, in my view, is not going to let anything happen to Niger. It may have issues with the government. It may need to step back from being at the forefront and visible. We're going to have lots of other players in there. We're going to have the Goviexes and Global Atomics and the Myriad Uraniums and others in there being very active. But France itself and the Americans and the government of Niger and the people of Niger, everybody's going to be working together here. This is my sense. I was there a few months ago, meeting the Prime Minister, Minister of Mines, and lots of others. My sense is everybody's very focused on keeping Niger stable, no matter what happens in the surrounding region. So that's one of the things that makes it, these are some of the things that make it, just a really good jurisdiction. Do you mind if I add too, a big endorsement happened about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. Global Atomic just raised $115 million of equity for its DASA project, right there in the Timbersoy. This is a development stage project. They're going to be a producer soon. But big funds, sophisticated groups, 60% of the money came from Canada, 20% US, 20% Australia. These are groups that did a lot of due diligence. They understand Niger, they understand the risk, and they've decided this is a highly investable place. It's got a future, stable. It's a lot of money for, company like that to raise in West Africa. So very exciting for everybody and a big endorsement of Niger. I hope that's relevant to your viewers and interesting to your viewers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to touch a little bit on the political situation in Niger. You mentioned it's quite a stable district at the moment, and it probably will be that way moving forward. You have a pretty unique perspective in that you've been able to meet the Prime Minister, the Minister of Mines, and so hear what they have to say as well. So how has your relationship been with the local government, and how does that give you confidence that the region's going to remain stable as a uranium mining and exploration district moving forward?
Well, they've got the new generation has come up now. So for decades, you had the old government interacting with Orano, French government, etc. They had their own dynamic. I've spent a lot of time in Africa the last 11, 12 years interacting with governments and the different people involved in the sectors, or in the sector, but in different countries. And what I see are these they're younger, they're my age now, they're 50s and plus, but they're sort of the young Turks, et cetera, who've come up, and they're very sincere. They want to reduce corruption. They want to have a strong mineral sector that attracts a lot of investment. They want to create jobs for their people. They want to raise living standards. They want to have a nice place to live, and they see the mining and uranium mining in Niger's case as part of the key part of the solution. So, this is what's going on within the government and in society. They want this, and some of the questions and the conversations were around that. How do we attract more? I mean, Canadians and Australians. We're very lucky. We're wanted. Come in. There's some other dynamics when we can get into this with regard to Orano. It's almost like when they're in agriculture, when there's a monoculture, pros and cons to having just Orano and the government together for decades, right? All sides, including Orano, want more variety in the timber soy basin, and so that's happening at the government level too, and bureaucracy, the businesses there that support all this. So you get a sense of that too. It'll be healthy for everybody. Everybody wants it. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's touch on Orano a little bit, because I know that Myriad Uranium has a relationship with them. And could you talk a little bit about your connection with Orano, the impact they've made in that region, and how you expect their influence to perhaps benefit the uranium mining industry there?
Yeah, I mean, we were just meeting. I was just in Cape Town last week, met with some senior Orano people and talking all about this. So there's layers to the onion, right? We could go get in deep colonial history dynamics. You've got different pressures in the region. It's easy to blame different groups and things like that for the way things are. Okay, we'll get into that in a moment. But the overall legacy of that Orano has left to and created within Niger is extremely positive. This is my perspective. So they come in and explored this basin, found a lot of uranium, and we know that there's still a lot of uranium there, a high degree of confidence. The legacy is, and I'll just circle back to massive infrastructure built, training, a mentality, an understanding that the uranium is going to lead to, and mining is going to lead to it, if it's done right and everybody works together, to an uplift in Niger. So, and you've got, from a practical point of view too, Niger has done all this regional scale exploration, and companies like ours, Global Atomic, GoVX, and others, the Chinese at Azalik Mine, and there are others, we're all benefiting from this because the whole basin was Orano's or its predecessors. So everybody is leveraging what Orano has done. Orano also has its mill, very nice high capacity mill that's going to take feed initially from Global Atomic. We all benefit from that. Orano wants material. So this provides us with all sorts of options. If we find uranium, we start producing. We've got Orano there. Global Atomic is soon going to have its facility. We're going to be able, you could feed their facility too, as interim step before, for example, you build your own processing facilities. These are really important things from a practical point of view. Also, there are tens of thousands of very highly skilled Nigerians there. They're all available. They're available. And they're there to work and create. They want to participate in this, and that is an incredible help. You don't have to start from scratch. I've worked in other countries and built companies in other countries where you really are starting from scratch in terms of infrastructure, training people, government, the bureaucracies. They don't have any operating mines. Niger is just right in that sweet spot and underexplored. So here we are.
Right. And do you think it presents an advantage in Niger in terms of permitting time? Because in a place like Canada, for example, you can get a lot of ESG red tape. And of course, ESG is not a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But some people believe in some Western nations, it's gone a little bit too far. Everything you have to get through in terms of the government actually permitting and allowing you to both explore and start a mine. So have you found that Niger is maybe a little bit more eager to get projects up and running, and therefore it makes the barrier to entry a little bit lower for a company like yours?
Everything I hear and understand. So again, I've been CEO for a few months. I've been in Africa for years. I've had some, but I'm somewhat familiar now. I've done a deep dive, talked to all the CEOs, management of these companies that have been there for a long time. So I do understand a fair amount. The answer is an emphatic yes. Massive advantage in Niger. First of all, we have our exploration permits. We have our permits to do everything we need to do. It's not like, for example, British Columbia, which is my home. I love British Columbia. You get an exploration permit, then you're going to have to apply for a drilling permit. Then you're going to have to wait for that. You're going to have to interact with, local First Nations. Some of them are very straightforward to deal with. Others are going to take more time, and there's a bit of uncertainty injected into all the process, right? Here, now listen, to be fair, there's a bit of luck. Niger is pre-Sahara desert. There's a lot of these areas are fairly empty. So that helps versus what we call culture. There being, settlements and, people roaming around. So that is a bit different. But it doesn't matter. This is the mentality in Niger is let's get things done. You get your exploration permit, boom, you have everything you need to get to discovery, to drill a resource. Okay, then you apply for a mine permit. You do your environmental and mine permit together. The government has a year to respond, really, and grant the permit. So you interact. This is my understanding that all this happens. That is very fast. You can be up and going in just a few years, really. So contrast that with, I see stats like 13-year average in Canada to go from, you made a discovery, build a mine. Whereas in Niger, just a few years. This is massive. You put your money in, if you're an investor, you've invested in Myriad. We make a discovery. We're going to, we can just go up that curve like hopefully like a rocket ship very quickly, up the stages and be producing uranium, and everybody gets to kind of get in and out where they want without having to wait. It could be not just 13 years, but a lot of cases that, Jesse, you're familiar with, you've seen, it could be a couple decades, up to 30 years in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's waiting around. If you discount cash flows and all this type of thing, it just destroys the value, right? It's, really tough. Everybody's sitting around. It's not like this in Niger, makes it very exciting. And I just want a little plug for Global Atomic. You can see they're just on this, the cusp here. That's an exciting company to also invest in my view, just because of how Niger works. They're going to be able to start producing. They're leveraging all the benefits. They've got Orano there. They get to feed Orano's mill. They get to build their own facilities. We're going to do the same thing. Hopefully we may also make a discovery, can do that. And I think, create a ton of value for shareholders.
Yeah, well, let's dive into Myriad Uranium specifically now. So for those unfamiliar with the story, could you give us an overview of the company and what you guys are up to in Niger?
Yeah, happy to. So we are a CSE-listed junior explorer, new. We acquired an option just over 1,800 square kilometers of uranium exploration licenses. So again, Timor-Soy Basin, Niger. It's a 6-year option to acquire 100%, starting last August. The terms of that are that our partners, our local partners who optioned us the property, they got 8.5 million shares. We only have 26 million shares out approximately. So they're a big interest in our company. We're very aligned. I'm going to jump around a little bit and just mention that those shares are trickled out over 3 years. So we're really tied together here to make a discovery. So again, Myriad Uranium, CSE listed. We'll soon have our Frankfurt ticker, our OTC ticker. Everybody's going to be able to trade. And we're trading at around 34 cents, so just under a $9 million market cap. And we're very interesting, and we're a little bit different than everybody else who is either greenfield or more advanced. We sit in between, so I think our value, people can figure out their own comps, but I think we're going to be re-rated, and here's why. So we have 4 licenses aggregating over 1,800 square kilometers, but they lie on the structure right up against, number one, Africa's largest uranium deposit. That's 380 million pounds at Immereren. That's Orano's Immereren. We are on the structures that we interpret come together on our license, the Arlet Fault that goes into Immereren, and then another structure that goes off to GoviX's Madawela. We're very close to Madawela. We're right up against Immerare, and this is like prime territory. We also have another license just further south at the intersection of the key Arlet Fault and the Azusa Fault that just down the road goes to Global Atomic's DASA project. So we're at and that's just south of Immerare, and we're right in the prime spots. We also have 2 other licenses that are very exciting. I invite people to go to our website and take a look. So we're in position A. These are Orano licenses that they would still be exploring if it weren't for Fukushima. These were their exploration licenses, which they relinquished post-Fukushima. $19 uranium. There's some geopolitics, other issues, but they relinquished these licenses. Our local partners grabbed them, and we've got them now. On top of this, Orano explored our licenses. They conducted regional scale exploration. They found uranium, 161 boreholes, 24,000 meters, airborne geophysics, quite a bit of work, millions and millions of dollars of work. We have all that data. I'll add that Orano formulated plans to do intensive exploration in our license areas. Never quite got to it. Fukushima exited exploration. So here we sit with, we're incredibly lucky at it. We wouldn't have been able to do this deal now that uranium has hotted up. But my predecessor, Pete Smith, went to Cambridge with some people that are connected to the people in Niger who was able to do this deal, and we're extremely lucky. So we're way ahead of the game here. We have these plans. Third thing I'd mention is that Global Atomic has made these, several actually, high-grade discoveries that together form the DASA project. This is a new paradigm in the Timor-Soy. It's more like Athabasca now. So what you had Orano for decades, exploring the top 300 meters of the Timor-Soy basin. Immerare, Africa's largest uranium deposit, probably world's second largest. That lies the deposit lies in the sandstone roll-front deposit, top 300 meters. There's all of a sudden the rocks change, get older, and you have the Carboniferous. And Orano did not explore below that. Global Atomic did. They drilled deeper. They found this massive high-grade resource down there, and has totally changed everything. And now, just as Fukushima was happening, things were transitioning in Niger. Orano saw that Global Atomic had made these discoveries. We have some of their reports where they're just starting to talk. Wait a second, maybe we need to drill deeper. You can read it in French. It's very interesting for me, seeing this and excited. But they weren't able to do it. They made plans. We have those plans. We're going to do that. Hopefully, we make one or more DASA-like discoveries on our properties, leveraging insights from Global Atomic, the data we have, and Orano's plans. That's our story.
Yeah, well, having that data from Orano and being able to leverage it is definitely a massive asset. And you touched on Global Atomic and their operations there. That they've discovered not too long ago grades of U3O8 that are equivalent with what you'd find in the Athabasca Basin, which I think surprised a lot of people. So how does that information inform your exploration efforts and what you might expect to find in your own exploration?
Very cool. So, a few months ago, they reported, I think it was just over 46 meters of over 3% uranium. That's really gangbusters. Within that, 0.7 meters, over 13%. It's got us very excited. So one of our licenses is just under 20 kilometers, I think, from DASA on the same Azusa fault. We can see the displacement there. This is a secondary fault to the main one that has always been thought to control mineralization in the basin. That's the Arlet Fault. The secondary fault that hosts DASA, we are studying very carefully the geology at DASA. It's, again, just down the road from us. Where the uranium's been captured and how. And we're hoping to, high-resolution geophysics, other methods to, understand the faults at a deeper level in the Carboniferous. And basically leverage everything we can learn from what Global Atomic has done to point our drills to the same locations analogous just down the road. And, so this is it. I mean, this is going to change the paradigm, I think, in Niger. I personally believe Temersoy is going to, be one of the hottest places on the planet for uranium exploration. Hopefully we're a big part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Could you give us an introduction to the team at Myriad Uranium and how you plan to leverage their expertise in your efforts?
Sure. I'll go straight to our chief geologist. His name is George van der Walt. He's South African. He's a uranium exploration expert. We're very lucky to have him. So he ran Peninsula's Karoo project and had out over 12,000 boreholes, very complex. So he's a superstar. So I want to mention him first. He's leading everything. Also on our technical committee, David Miller. He's from Wyoming. He's an in situ recovery expert. Worked with Utah International, became a REVA, and he's a well-known guy. He's going to become more and more useful and important as we grow. We have several people on the ground in Niger who are actually, I'm going to save mentioning them because we haven't quite made it official yet. But there's a lot of expertise there that we get to leverage. These are Orano, former Orano people, for example, international experts. So we're very lucky there. Two more board members that are West African, Dai Kaba and Cyril Amadi. They were appointed by our local partners who appoint two board members. Dai Kaba, until recently, senior partner at McCarthy Tetro, a big international law firm, and he was partner in Toronto. He's now West Africa based. Very well-known, high-end mining lawyer, major asset for us. Cyril Amadi, Germany-based banker, West African origin. He's worked with lots of big groups, Endeavor Financial, etc. Aziza Souza, he's Canadian, Nigerian. All of these folks are close to, government, key people that we need. So they're going to be a big help to us. Our other board members, senior Canadian geologist Fred Bonner, major asset. Guy Pinsent, he's a businessman, finance expert, Central Europe based. He happens to he's sort of multi-dimensional guy, but he's the CEO of Central Europe's largest self-storage business. But he's a bit of a financial genius. Went to Cambridge with my predecessor, Pete Smith. We have a sort of a superstar board, especially and I'm on the board too. Superstar board especially for our level. We're just getting started here. I also mentioned that our small founding group owns about 10 million of the shares, and our friends and family, close people. So we have the cap structure is 8.5 million in the hands of our local partner, around 10 million our group, and then a fairly small amount held by mostly people that we know quite well. So it's a tight structure. We've all paid hard money for our shares. People who know understand that changes the dynamic. We're big shareholders. We paid significant money for our shares, and it's a really good foundation for the company. Management is good, board good, and we've all we're big shareholders.
Yeah, that's great. Management with skin in the game, obviously one of the main things that investors look at with a project like this. So that's excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today, Thomas. I'll put a link to the Myriad Uranium website in the description below so people can check that out, and would love to have you back on again sometime later this year to get an update.
Anytime. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jesse.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.